Christine
Whoa.
and M.
That is our new theme song. I've commissioned, I went on Fiverr and I paid $5 for someone to make us a song. And I said, just accent my name because that's
If I
the
made
more important one.
$5 off that, I'm going to be writing a lot of songs soon.
Yeah. Sometimes M will text me or will Venmo me and does this to like a lot of their friends. Like Venmo, like ugly tax, 1 cent. And
and
I
you pay
like
it every time, my friend, so I thank
put
you.
it on Instagram and then like 5 minutes later Em was like, well, you reposted it. I was like, well, she paid for it. And I was like, you know what? You're right. Like I can't say, wow, how dare you? Like if I'm the one paying the tax, you know?
It sounds like it was a reasonable fare and it was a reasonable price for a reasonable reason. And you said, all right, here I go. Cha-ching.
I said, fine, here's a cent.
Yeah, ugly tax, straight tax. Well, now I can't charge you straight tax. If anything, I owe you 50% back. So.
Oh my God, I'm gonna start charging you for your
yeah,
for
but
your
anytime I've got a straight friend, they about once a month
I used to get what if I just said that what if I said I was bi just to avoid the 1 cent tax that you used to send me every month? This is like honestly, me evading evading tax law.
You're a venture capitalist or whatever it is. That sounds like that's entrepreneurship.
Right. Oh, thank you.
Probably saved a whole nickel by now.
I honestly, and I'm gonna spend it. That shiny nickel. Can't wait.
How am I?
Same.
Yeah. I'm good now. I've been in a bit of a hole for the last few weeks.
Yeah.
Just a lot going on. Nothing like super dire. I think everything just felt like it was coming in at once, and I've been very overwhelmed, and I feel like I haven't gotten to sit and fucking relax. And it's fucking Scorpio season, let's be clear.
Man, they always do it to us. Yeah, it's showing.
She's rearing her ugly head. Ugly tax, 1 penny, please.
Pay it up, Scorpios.
Yeah, I feel like I haven't really gotten like any time to breathe lately, and then in a couple days I'm about to be gone for like 2 weeks because I'm traveling. I feel like I've got a wedding, then I'm seeing other people, and then I've got Thanksgiving. It's just it just never ends. So
yeah,
a little bit of treading water until I drown is how I feel currently.
Treading water is a good way to put it. Yeah, that is what I feel as well. Yes,
I have a chaotic reason for why I drink.
Okay, tell me.
Because if you hang on, how am I gonna phrase this?
Oh God.
So, last night was the first night in a while I've actually had like a second to breathe. Well, not really, but I had some time. And I found a way to use it very unwisely, which is I found a new hyperfixation, and it is the Waffle House marking system for their menu, where
what?
Okay, I'm glad you don't know. And if you've ever
I was just at a Waffle House too, so I'm like primed for this information. I'm ready.
Christine, it's fucking crazy pants. Okay, so if you work at Waffle House, can you please like send me like a full cheat sheet because I want to memorize the entire thing. But you know how like usually like at a restaurant usually there's like a POS system where they just like write on the ticket like what you ordered. Sure. They have code, like secret code. Maybe not so secret, but they don't write anything down. They use their own ingredients and like put random like butter packets and jelly packets all arranged a certain way on a plate, and that's how they tell the cook what to make.
No.
So like 1 butter packet means like a waffle, 2 stacked on top of each other means a double stack, 1 upside down means, and they're like, it's fucking crazy, by the way. Like that's the most normal information I'm about to give you. If you put a butter pack with a jelly packet on it, that means it could mean either blueberry waffle, or it could mean dry toast, or if you put a ketchup packet horizontal, it means you want a steak, but if you have it vertical on the left side of the plate versus the right side of the plate, it means different things.
Doesn't it slide around?
I guess not. If you put pickles, if you're looking at a plate and you put pickles on the top of the plate, like north, that means ham. If you put it east, it's sausage. If you put it south, it's bacon. And if you put it west, it means
This sounds
no
like
meat at all.
you've been locked in a basement for too long, and like you've come up with like an entire world in your own mind.
And like wherever you put the jelly packet, there's like 5 different locations on the plate to tell you how you want your eggs cooked. If you do it a different way, it like implies
what the fuck?
if you put a mayonnaise packet one direction or on one side, it means chicken. If you flip it over, it means something else. It's like it's the
This is
craziest.
I mean, you're right. I've never heard of such a thing. Is this a TikTok revelation? Reddit? How did you discover this?
It had to be TikTok. But
also, is the like mafia, like the Waffle House mafia, gonna like silence
The
you
Waffia?
for the Waffia? Is the Waffia gonna silence you for sharing their secrets? Like, is this
I
something
won't be
we're
silenced by
allowed?
the Waffia
I
house,
won't.
I'll tell you that.
Okay, all right. Well, watch yourself, because I will be silenced, and I don't feel like it right now. So
I found a couple cheat sheets for people who like work there, and I guess it's like always posted over the grill or something. Found a couple of those, memorized them. Now I'm trying to
sure.
now I'm trying to learn every single little thing. I want to learn the whole thing. For what reason? None. Also, apparently that's just for the people cooking, but then if you write it down a certain way, they write it down really fast, but it's also its own complete different jargon. Like it doesn't just say fucking eggs and bacon. It's like there's a whole like script that they write and it's in crazy words. So Waffle House is just as fucking bonkers as we all thought.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I feel like this is enlightening, but also, yeah, like you said, not surprising necessarily. Yeah.
It feels like Waffle House this entire time it's like it's all connected, because I'm feeling like
Okay.
Waffle House has always been run by people who are their best and worst at 3 a.m. and now it's just making even more sense in their business practices, because
Yeah, it's sort of like they've evolved or devolved into their own language, and it's like, what did we expect?
They had a troll hole and they were like, we're gonna write it in code, and then they just really committed to it.
And everyone was like, you don't have to do that. You can write blueberry waffle. Yeah. And they're like, no, that's too easy.
So anyway, that's my reason why I drink, is because this week's hyperfixation is the Waffle House marking code.
I'm very impressed. Thank you for sharing that with me.
Thank you. Why do you drink, Christine? I think I've got myself a guess. No? Here we go. Let's take it away.
I'm so tired. I am so okay. We had a big project. Okay. That's what M is referring to. We had a big project. You'll hear about it later. So that was finally, the deadline was approaching. It was really stressful. We were not sleeping. We were up all night. Blah, 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 blah. Literally the day that this project was due, the next morning I had to drive to Pittsburgh for a live show with Zandy for Beach Too Sandy, which was a delight, of course. Then the next day was Nashville, but like, of course, I had to prepare my notes for both of those. So then we drove 9 hours from Pittsburgh to Nashville. Then the next morning I drove back home, and then the next morning I had to drive to Columbus for a wedding. And we're driving up there, everything's fine and good, and all of a sudden my car starts making this horrible shrieking siren sound, and I look at the dash and it says, I can read it to you. It says, brake failure, pull over safely. And I'm like, I'm going 75 miles per hour on I-71, and you're telling me
and by 75 were you going 90?
Obviously. And so I was driving, and I'm like in the middle lane. There's tons of traffic, and so I like go to slow down, and I'm like, oh, the brakes just don't. Okay, so they're not doing anything. The brakes just don't do anything. So Blaze is like, push the e-brake. So I press the e-brake. Fucking nothing. It's like, rah, rah, pull over. And I'm like, if the person in front of me slows down even 5 miles an hour, like we're collision course. Like there's no stopping the car. I'm hitting the e-brake. I'm trying to brake the car. Literally nothing. It's not letting me.
It's an actual nightmare you went through.
Because it's one of those stress dreams we've probably all had, where like the brakes stop working, and it feels like, why would that ever happen? Well, it did. And not to give everyone anxiety, because it ended up being fine. I don't really freak out during like a crisis. I'm very much like, I just kind of go into like problem solving mode. So I'm like, well, okay, this wedding, and you know, it's so funny. It's not funny at all. That's why I'm not laughing. But 5 minutes before, I had said to Blaze, I said, I'm so tired. I can barely I don't even know how I'm like not sick or collapsing. And he goes, well, you know, we don't have to go to the wedding. We can like send and I said, this is the only thing I've been looking forward to for almost a month. Like, we're going to this wedding, And he goes, okay, Christine, I wasn't like, just offering it, right? 5 minutes later, my brakes are, easy. We're on our way. We're halfway there. Literally, it was 49 minutes from Columbus, 49 minutes from my house. We're literal halfway point. My car just goes, actually, we don't you're not going to be able to stop now. So I do that thing that you see or think about, or if you're me, you constantly think about where trucks have to go pull off and like use one of those ramps to like stop themselves when the brakes fail. So I'm like trying to get off the highway. It's like tons of traffic. And I like,
which by the way is the one thing I definitely wouldn't have done, because my thought would have been, oh, if I get off on a ramp and now I'm like, there's a red light, like I'm just going to drive right into a red light.
No, it
and,
wasn't
like,
a real ramp. It was like grass. It was a farm. I was like, okay, I just got to get off the highway. Otherwise I'm going to crash.
Honestly, like whoever is in charge of the cosmos, they were looking out for you there. Cause that's crazy.
I mean, it was just like long stretch of highway. I was like, I gotta pull over the shoulder. So I'm like going, merging, I'm like, sorry guys, I know I'm cutting everyone off because my car is not in my control anymore. I'm Jesus take the wheel. Nope, he's not here. So here I go. And so I just veered off into the grass, and we just had to fucking roll the car until it was slow enough that I could put it in park. Like, because the car won't go into park obviously if it's rolling.
So you just, to be clear, you just found at the perfect time a whole field to just drive through.
No, it wasn't a field. It was just like the shoulder. Like I just went along the shoulder for like a mile. And I was like, I'm just going to have to keep driving along the shoulder. Eva just said, that is insane. I'm so glad you're okay. She's like, is that why in your Be Real you posted you at a wedding and said, we almost died on the way here? I was like, oh, yeah. That's why I said it. Anyway, it was
also, you
really
were so
bad.
fried mentally, you had to have thought that this was just a dream. Were you just like pressing your hand a million times?
No, I literally was. And then I went to the wedding and I was like, this all feels like some weird fever dream the night before the wedding where I'm just like inventing all this stress.
Right.
No, it was real. And then my brother had to like get up, drive to meet us. The tow truck. Oh, that's the other thing. I pressed the fucking SOS button that comes with a car.
Didn't
fucking
work?
Crickets. She answers the phone. It's not even that. It's worse than that. She answers the phone and she's like, emergency, is everyone okay? And I said, yeah, we're all fine, but like the brakes failed and the car's off because if I turn the car on, it just starts rolling and like we don't know what to do. And there's like a pause and she goes, is anyone there who can hear me? And I'm like, yes, I can hear you. I'm right here. And she goes, I think they hung up on me. And she's talking to her coworkers. I'm like, girl, I'm screaming. I'm right here. And she's like, man, like, blah, blah, blah. And she's like bitching. And I'm like, I'm right here. Like, what if I was dead and I wasn't answering you because I was dead?
By the way, isn't your first assumption if you're the SOS that if you don't hear anything, call a fucking ambulance?
I'm like, clearly, and it sent my location. I'm like, I'm clearly on the side of the road. Like, so she goes, I've dispatched police. And I was like, okay, well, at least she dispatched police. Bullshit. They never came. Nobody ever came.
You got to get with the winning team. You got to be Team Subaru. I've never had a problem with my Subi.
I don't think that's true. I've heard some.
What have you heard? Well, she has gone through it all, and she's fine.
I guess you've put her through a lot. Maybe that's
I'm the worst thing that ever happened to her. So
oh no,
just like you.
For once in a relationship, I'm not the toxic one with this car. So it's nice, in that way. No, and I like seriously do not want to put them on blast because again, like I'm so proud of my car. I love her so much. She's my best friend, and I've driven her all through the U.S. already. Okay, and she's nailed it. But she had some sort of sensor failure, and something bad happened. So anyway, she's coming back to me tomorrow, and I'm only a little bit afraid. But
I know I was going to say, do you have PTSD now? I would like. I think it would be very normal to be nervous to get in a car now. Wonder if your brakes are going to fail every time.
Only if Leon.
I mean, not to put like more in your head.
If it's just me, I'd be like, it's fine. No, it's fine. They're going to fix it because they know if something does happen, they're in big fucking trouble. So I think they're going to take every measure to fix it. And when I got it, there was already an issue with like the trunk sensor. I think the whole sensor thing on this car has to be, I think they're replacing the whole sensor. I think it was a little too big for its britches with all this fancy new equipment,
Yeah,
and all this
I'd be like,
safety.
throw an extra sensor in there just in case this one also fails.
Just throw a few sensors in there.
Pop them in.
And make sure the e-brake works just in case, you know. So anyway, it was just like really ridiculously chaotic and like silly. It was like the last day. I was like, this is finally something fun I get to go do, you know, just a quick drive with my wonderful partner. We can drive up, have a nice solo night, and then all of a sudden we're straight on the side of the highway. I'm walking to the way station to go pee in the porta potty because, you know, there's too many cars to pee on the side of the road. It was just like one of those days, and I'm just really like. I feel like, oh, and then the next morning I woke up and I had a dream that I had got a cold sore, and I woke up and was like, phew, that was just a dream. And then I just got like burst out in my herpes
Oh
simplex.
gosh.
Just,
well,
I just like, you know, when you have like an inflammatory response. Well, I do because I have an
sure
inflammatory illness. So my whole body just went like berserk, and now everything is upside down and topsy turvy. I have like cold sores all over my face. I'm like,
aw.
Anyway, I'm just like having a day and a
Girl,
time and a
you need a
week.
nap. That's number one.
I do. I just don't have time. You know, I have a baby and all this nonsense that takes up a lot of my time. But okay. I'm sorry. I'm just complaining now. I'm so sorry. I'm back
Okay.
here with you now, and I'm gonna have one of these old-fashioned lemon drops from Jungle Jim's. And by the way, if we need a transition, Eva told us to talk about something, which is that apparently there have been some issues with people's podcast platforms that they listen on, where they'll write in and say like, oh, there's something wrong with the editing. And then once you refresh or re-download your podcast player, you know, whichever player you use, it'll kind of fix the problem. And this seems to be increasing. I don't know if these platforms are like updating,
Getting funky, getting
glitchy. But for whatever reason, that seems to keep happening. So we wanted to give you a little PSA. Like if something sounds wonky, it might be your podcast player. So just try closing out, refreshing, re-downloading, you know. Anyway, PSA.
One last
Also wear your seatbelt just in case.
Oh, okay. And one last other announcement. Kind of big one.
What?
Girl, we're going on tour.
Oh, right, that. It just feels like
Let's try it again. Hang on. I'm going to
okay. Start over.
We're going on tour.
We're going on tour. I'm so excited, actually. It's going to be a fucking blast. We're going to Salem, Beverly, technically, but I've never been to Salem.
I'm very excited for you.
I'm so excited.
I can't wait to be your official tour guide. Eva's also going to be your tour guide. You are in good hands.
Are you guys going to be debating over who gets to be my tour guide?
Eva can do it.
Oh, okay. Wow.
But like, if you like, maybe we'll tag team it. You get an Eva day and an M day, and we'll see who you know.
I can't wait. I'm just so excited. And Eva says she already has a Google Doc, so I think you're falling behind. Sorry.
I mean,
sorry.
Sometimes you don't need an Excel sheet to have fun. Am I right?
Oh, really?
Just saying. Just saying, Eva. Well, it'll be a duel for us, I suppose. A Salem
duel. Don't need an Excel sheet to have fun. You heard it here first.
My girlfriend would disagree. She loves an Excel sheet.
I know Allison, and she used to take Saturday morning Excel classes. Okay, so
she's her own person, and I love her for who she is. Okay, we're going on tour, everybody, and we've got 16 shows. We didn't plan this, but apparently it's a whole Northeast tour. Didn't see that coming.
No, but, it really is just like its own.
I don't know how that happened.
Its own beast.
Yeah, we're testing new markets, as they say, and apparently what that means is we're going to the Northeast.
Yeah, well, and also Indianapolis, which I feel like they've gotten the shaft so many times because when the last tour, I forget what happened. Oh, well, with 2020, and then their show like just never got rescheduled. So like
that would be the one that deserves it the most, I think.
We've skipped them so many times, so they finally have their moment. Knock on wood, hopefully.
And if you would like to get tickets, you can at our website, and that's whydrink.com. And we hope to see you there. And if you can't make it for some reason, we will see you in the fall, but it will be a different tour. So if you want to see
your last...
If you want to see our current show on the Rocks, which is not the same as Here for the Booze. Here for the Booze was us investigating the Queen Mary.
Here for the Booze is old news, you know?
Yeah. Old news. Here for the Booze. Okay. I'm sorry. If you want to see On the Rocks, you have until the end of this tour. And then if you want to come to another tour, then we'll see you in the fall.
We'll see you in the fall, hopefully. Let's see how we survive this first tour. But yes,
maybe it'll be in the Southwest, since apparently this is the Northeast. So I don't know.
Apparently so. Yeah, Texas was like, "What the fuck?" And we were like, "Listen, we don't know. I'm sorry, we didn't do this."
New York, Texas. I was looking for all of it, and it didn't. Whatever.
Bad.
We'll see you in the fall, I guess.
I guess so, but no promises because again, we don't control it.
But anyway, wanted to say that because we're famous for telling you that we're going on tour with like one date left. So
that's true.
So please come, and we'll probably be making announcements throughout the next couple episodes just so to make sure everybody knows. So with that, I, Christine, and Christine's shoulders in that black tank top we all love are ready to tell you a story now that 20 minutes have passed. Are you ready, Christine?
I'm so you can see my moth now when I wear this.
Oh my God, you're flexing. Christine, stop. I'm like getting bothered. Okay.
Yeah, right. Flexing absolutely is not something I'm able to do, but yeah, sure. Flexing.
By the way, ever since I mentioned your shoulders, I'm not trying to like, sexualize you at all. But a lot of people have been writing in, agreeing.
I gotta say,
there's something about that tank top.
I gotta say, I'm like loving it only because I am so deeply insecure about my shoulders that I'm like, wow, okay, so we're getting some love. That's nice.
You've got the queer girlies foaming at the mouth with those shoulders.
It's like literally the nicest thing ever because, again, I grew up with some commentary from people who shall not be named about like, oh, like the full shoulders of a football player and like, oh,
yeah, and you know what the queer girls are saying now? Hold me with those shoulders.
Yeah.
So you're so strong like a linebacker or whatever they're called.
Like, yeah, a linebacker. Yeah. Anyway, so it's very kind. Thank you all for your love, and you am.
Yeah, well, I was the first to notice, but I'm glad everyone has followed suit. So, okay, you flex again if you want at any moment. Okay,
I don't want to give it all away at once,
Yeah, where's the door to your room? Can you point it for me? Where can you point out the door? Just give it a point.
Oh, I'm stupid. I'm like, why? It's right there.
Where is it? Hang on, I'm confused.
Here, it's right here.
Oh.
Here's a middle finger for you.
I wanted to see that bicep one more time. Okay.
I don't have one, but okay.
Apparently, Christina's going to just be a tease tonight. So
that's me.
I've got a story for you that starts a little goofy and starts with a deep dive because I can't control myself. This is in the UK, and this is the story of Alton Towers.
Okay, I've never heard of it.
Alton Towers. When you think Alton Towers, what do you think? What does it like sound like to you when I say the UK Alton Towers?
It sounds like a dorm building to me.
It sounds like it sounds like castle-y, medievally. But
it sounds like somebody in the US trying to be like the Belvedere apartment. Like, it sounds like something that's not fancy, but is trying to be. But if you said it is in the UK. So yeah, it does sound more like it would be a real royal thing.
Well, it's a theme park.
Oh. Thanks for letting me wander that path and like just like letting me go.
I really let you take the bait. Yeah.
You did.
So it's a theme park. It's actually the UK's largest theme park, and it's a resort. It's so big that it also has 3 hotels connected to the amusement park.
Is that where Peppa Pig World is?
I didn't deep dive that far.
Maybe. Come on. What kind of deep dive doesn't go all the way to Peppa Pig?
I didn't even know Peppa Pig had an amusement park.
Mm-hmm. Of course she does.
Well, then Bluey is hot on her tracks, so
yeah. Well, Bluey's Australian, so maybe that'll be next. That
if you're in Australia and there's a Bluey amusement park, I'm gonna need you to tell me about it. So, so okay, it's the UK's largest theme park. It's on over 900 acres.
Whoa.
It has 3 hotels attached to it, and there are over 40 rides. But I wonder if that's true, because I looked up its list of like current attractions, and I didn't see up to 40. Maybe this is in its time.
Maybe they're counting 40 as like every little.
Yeah, I think so too, because it looks like they've got about like 15 like main attractions.
Right. Okay.
But at least before COVID, I don't know what the number is now, but like 3 million people come to this thing every year. It is a hot commodity in the UK. I've never heard of it, but It opened
I thought
in
it was a shitty dorm building with rats infesting it. So clearly I also have not been.
Well, it opened in 1980. And it featured, when it first opened, it featured the Corkscrew, which was UK's first ever double loop roller coaster.
Holy shit, a double loop-de-loop?
A loop-de-loop, yep. And that's it. That's what a loop-de-loop is, right? It's a double loop.
Is it?
Loop-de-loop.
I am so stupid.
And the Alton Towers has also broken several other records with their rides, including Oblivion, which is the world's first dive coaster. Now, speaking of dive, here's my deep dive on roller coasters for you.
We almost made this a roller coaster podcast, you guys. Like, not even shitting you. And was like, we could do like abandoned theme parks podcast.
That's true. I did suggest it a long time ago.
You did.
So Oblivion is the world's first, not UK, world's first dive coaster. So I was like, what's a dive coaster?
What is a dive coaster?
It is, so when you're on a roller coaster and then it's like, you like climb up, and then you're about to like essentially dive off.
Mm-hmm.
So like I know a lot of roller coasters do that, but a dive coaster is one that does that. But there are more than 4 people in one row. So it's like a really wide roller coaster that dives over the edge.
Okay.
Then there's 13, and it's spelled with like numbers in it because it's so cool.
Oh, it's Leet.
Yeah. And it's the world's first vertical free fall drop mid roller coaster, which is like a roller coaster on a track and then drops and then like lands on another track and keeps going.
I just did that on I-71 North. It was like probably the scariest thing I've ever done, and I don't recommend it.
Next time you caption a picture about that, make sure you use numbers so it looks really cool.
Happily.
Then there's Galactica, which was the world's first B&M flying coaster, and those are the coasters where
where you're like hanging.
No, it's like at Six Flags where they have the Superman where your tummy is
down.
Yeah, you're parallel to the ground, so it looks like you're flying.
That's kind of cool, actually. I do kind of like those.
And then there's Nemesis,
which is be guessing these. These all sound like albums from Zach Bagans.
The next one's called Immortal Portal. No. So Nemesis is just Europe's very first inverted roller coaster. So an inverted roller coaster is, instead of you sitting in the thing on a track, it's when the track is above you and your toesies are hanging.
Those are kind of fun.
But there's roller coasters like that are called inverted and suspended. Inverted are the ones where you are very solidly bolted to the track above you, whereas suspended is like you're attached to a thing that's attached to it doesn't matter. It's, to oversimplify, it's the one where your toes are hanging over.
Got it. Okay.
And then the last one is the Smiler, which is ironic.
Okay, why is that the scariest name ever? Like all of these, that's the scariest one so far to me.
It's also ironic because like you're not going to be smiling by the end.
No.
It's the roller coaster with the world's most inversions. It's broken the record for the most inversions. And I was like, what's an inversion?
Like
an inversion is anytime you're upside down. So it doesn't have to be a loop. It can be the times where like you kind of twist and you're upside down for a second. Or
okay. You're just getting like whiplashed all around.
Anytime your head is
I don't love
upside
that.
down.
In case anyone's wondering.
On the Smiler, you go upside down 14 times. My pots could never.
No.
But when I had my SVT, I could have really used this. So
honestly, that's a great point. It'll just hang you upside down. Yeah.
Eva, get me to the Smiler. And then it's also the world's first infinity coaster, and an infinity coaster holds more people for a longer track, and it can move forwards and backwards and does all sorts of drops. And
whoa.
Anyway, there's my deep dive on the 5 record-breaking roller coasters at Alton Towers.
Listen, look, you're living out your dreams of doing a roller coaster podcast.
I honestly, I would like a pat on the back for resisting the urge to fall really deep into hyperfixating on roller coaster fun facts.
I mean, it
for
sounds
this.
like you were already really busy with your other hyperfixation. So
My Waffle House menu marking system.
I
Yeah.
think like maybe there just wasn't room for that.
Next week, though, I might be showing up with a lot of weird roller coaster trivia all of a sudden, and you're gonna
it's gonna be like
endure.
just so random. You're just gonna casually throw them into conversation. We're gonna know,
and you're gonna love it. So
you're gonna love it.
At least someone out there will. So Alton Towers is like big deal roller coaster theme park, and originally, before it was ever a roller coaster, it was the site of it was used during the Iron Age, so like 1000 BC. And it was allegedly cursed by long forgotten magic, which feels like this is just the amusement park's history to
the
this
lore
so far.
of the amusement park. Yes, it does, especially with names like Oblivion. You know, they're like, oh, this is all from some forgotten magic.
Yeah, it feels like it's like part of the brand, but whatever.
Yeah.
So going all the way back, in 700 AD. This site belonged to the Saxons, then it belonged to the Normans and William the Conqueror, who we have talked about during our Tower of London episode.
Yes.
And in the 15th century, this land was given to the Talbot family. They were the Earls of Shrewsbury.
See what I mean, though, when you say Talbots, and here in the U.S., it's like, oh, it's like
a store.
The Kenwood Mall. And then there it's like, oh, it's like very famous royal rich fancy people. So
yeah.
Anyway, just an observation.
Yeah. Well, another observation is I can't ever talk about a place in the UK without saying something like the Earls of Shrewsbury.
Shrewsbury. And then when English people are like, don't make fun of us, I'm like, but it's so easy.
It's so
like,
easy.
You can make fun of us so easily too, but
yeah, like we're Americans.
The Earls of Shrewsbury, come on.
Like it's like fish in a barrel making fun of us. Like, let us have this.
Yeah, let us have one thing.
Also, speaking of which, if we were to tie the history of this place back into the amusement park as an homage, the Earls of Shrewsbury would be the coolest pub at this amusement park.
Think about the possibilities. Let's capitalize on it.
What are they called? The Oktoberfest mugs.
Yeah, a beer stein.
A stein. I feel like you could get a good stein at the
that was
Earls
actually my
of Shrewsbury.
First thought. Also, like one of those beer steins with like their coat of arms on it. You know, like an old timey tavern. Wow, you just busted out the. What is that called when you break the volume on the microphone?
Did I? I'm sorry. I was also looking at your shoulders at the same time, so it's probably just a combination of reactions.
That's on you. Okay, be more careful. Just kidding.
So the Earls of Shrewsbury got this land in the 15th century, and they had this land all the way until 1924. So they had it for 500 years.
Oh Jesus. Okay.
In the late 1600s. There was a house on this land at the time that the Talbots owned, and they built onto it over time. And by the 1800s, they were still adding additions to this thing. So imagine 2 centuries of just adding to this. It's giving Winchester Mystery House.
It is, actually.
And eventually, they ended up having one of the best homes and one of the finest gardens in all of Europe. Because
Shrewsbury.
Of Shrewsbury, which if you're working on it for 200 years, it better be fucking good. Can you imagine if it was still ranked as like the trashiest place?
Give me a break.
Yeah. So the Earls, they favored the Gothic revival style, and so the property started looking very medieval, and it became known as the Towers, which I feel like we could have gotten more creative, but okay.
Yeah, it's like it has its like intended effect where it's like, wow,
it's
what
imposing.
An imposing name. Yeah, it's like vague enough where you're like, ooh. But yeah, it's not that creative.
Yeah, I guess when you've owned the property for 500 years and you've had all that time to think of a name, maybe you just have to fucking throw a dart at the wall.
Circle back to the beginning. Yeah.
So when the Saxons owned the land, one of the kings actually went mad here and cursed the land before the Talbots ever got there. during the Earl's renovations, I got no context for this, but apparently they also cursed the land.
Wait,
I feel like
okay, does that
I feel like
cancel out the
that's
first one?
I feel like that's two stories I'm not giving information on, but I don't have any information on it. So, but yeah, so now the building has been cursed twice by both of its owners. Some say the curse began in the 1820s. Some say it happened in the 1840s, and either the 15th Earl or the 16th Earl Talbot are responsible for this curse. And pretty much the story goes that the Earl was in his coach heading to the house when a woman stopped him nearby. And this woman goes up to the Earl. She asks if he can spare a farthing, which, by the way, is the price of a quarter of a penny. So I would have to charge her 4 times for the ugly tax. But despite his wealth and ability to give her literally 0.25 cents, he says no and continues to drive on. She's pissed.
I love how he
because...
takes the time to stop to talk to her. Like, why
like,
even
what was
stop?
there, a red light, you know?
It's like the equivalent of if you walked up to somebody who was, you know, experiencing homelessness and you were like, hey, like, what's up? What do you want? And they're like, hey, do you have like something for me to like eat or drink or like a couple bucks? And you're like, no, bye. Yeah. It's like, well, why are you even... You're being an asshole intentionally.
Well, she clearly had the same
face.
opinion. She felt the same way because as he drove away, she points at an oak tree nearby. And she tells him that every time a branch falls from that tree, one of his relatives is going to die.
Oh, wow.
So she said,
wow.
I bet you really wish you gave me that quarter of a penny.
That's right.
And the next night, there was a freak storm. And one of his relatives got sick and died during this night. And when the Earl went out to the woods again, he saw a branch had come down from that tree.
Oh, boy.
Which, like, could have just been from the freak storm, but it was coincidental enough to freak him out. So he had his men chain the tree's branches in place so that the branches could never fall again.
Oh, yeah. Nothing to see here. Don't worry about it. I have my reasons.
I feel like if they've broken off the tree, that's still not good.
Yeah, no, it's not no. I feel like he's trying to play with fire here.
Well, you know what's super eerie about this though is to this day that tree has chains all over its branches.
Are you serious?
Isn't that funky?
Ooh, that just gave me the creeps.
I wonder like what her tag is on Instagram, like her location tag. You know, is it just like
the tree?
Yeah, you know, people go and take pictures of this like lore tree. You know?
Oh, I wonder.
I like to think her location is what the fuck is this creepy ass tree?
Like, also get these chains off me. I'm a tree. Leave me alone.
Yeah, I'm wondering, like, it's interesting that the town has appreciated the lore and respected it, and no one's just taken the fucking chains off by now. Like, you know, there's a teenager in the last several hundred years who was like, let's go take the chains off.
A teenager would do it. Because I was thinking, like, it would be a little daunting to be the one to take them off. Because you're like, well, I don't want to mess with the curse, you know? But a teenager I could see, like, fucking around.
Also, I wonder who, like, ancestry-wise, like, who is the current Talbot? Do they know about the tree?
And does it hold after he died? Is it like still in play, or is like the curse now null and void?
Right.
You know. So many questions.
I'll let you know when I talk to the witch. So
thank you.
So anyway, by the 1860s, the 18th Earl of Shrewsbury finally decides to open the tower up to the public because it is so big and marvelous and grandiose.
So gracious, my lord, to let me look inside your beautiful palace
and charge people. Of
course, right? Sure.
So he starts hosting.
I've seen Downton Abbey. I know how this works, and they're just trying to make money because they are getting broke. Okay, I know what's going on.
Well, actually, this was during a time when a lot of people were starting to have financial upheavals. So
there we go. I told you I watched a Downton Abbey movie on the airplane. I know all about this.
Here she comes, historian Christine.
Consider me an expert.
Well, so he starts hosting live shows there. He starts letting people perform music there. The gardens are really pretty, so people are going to go see the gardens. And until the early 1900s, so that's like 40, 50 years in, sections of the tower, as you said, they were losing money. And even having people come see the gardens and everything wasn't enough. And the property started being sold section by section until the newest earl there was like, all right, let's just sell the whole thing. And at 1924, that was when the last piece of the land was sold off after hundreds of years of the Earls of Shrewsbury owning the land.
Wow.
The land then became a World War II training camp for a little bit, but then it went back to becoming a popular tourist attraction with the gardens and everything. And in 1980, it opened as a theme park. So
sometimes I wonder about that, and there's no real answer to this, but what do you think the people who lived there and were like so proud of their like hermitage and like just having this estate and this tower, and they've spent their family legacy, and they just imagine it's going to go on forever. If they got a glimpse into like 100 years from now, there's going to be a kid vomiting cotton candy all over the sidewalk, like where your dog sleeps or where your hunting dogs sleep. I don't know. It's just so weird to me to think like, what would they think?
I have no idea. And I wonder like, not to get even like trippier, but like, would they even know what a theme park was? Like, what
exactly? That's what
like if you told them like a roller, like the Oblivion is going to be
the
in your bedroom,
inverted roller coaster. You're like, wait, what? The total drop from 500 yards in the sky or whatever. Like, and like then it makes me, of course, start thinking, well, in 100 years, we can't even fathom then what is going to be on what piece of land. Anyway, then I spiral. So,
well, I mean, hey, let's continue because
let's keep spiraling.
Let's keep this party going.
Great.
I've even said before, like, or we've talked about it before on the show of like where I'm sitting right now, like there could have been a dinosaur walking through here.
I mean, for real. I think about Okay, thank you. You get it.
And then like in 100 years from now, the equivalent to the Oblivion is like where I'm sitting. Like it's wild how at the end of the day, land is just land, and like
and
it's not even our fucking land.
No, certainly not.
So like just to add that into the twist of this
from it, right?
But like it's wild that at the end, like it's like so much history can happen in one spot, and it could all just also be totally erased like that.
And there's just no way to even imagine or know what could possibly be coming down the pike.
I like to imagine something like the Oblivion would be where I am, but
M will come back to haunt. If it's the Oblivion, M's gonna be like, I'm on that. I have first dibs on that roller coaster.
Okay, but perfect would be perfect if it was like the Haunted Mansion, right? Like, and then you got to be a ghost on your property while it is branded as haunted. That would be fun.
Fair point. Actually, pretty on point. I like it.
There's some pretty convenient places to be haunted. Zach's Museum in Vegas. Imagine if you used to live on that property and then died and was haunting the area, and you were like, oh, if only I had some friends that were also ghosts that could be nearby. And then they built a fucking ghost house on you.
But what a danger zone, because you're like, if only I had a friend, and then it's like, how about 600 creepy clown doll friends?
Like, you're overstaying your welcome. I meant every now and then.
This is my house, but okay.
Anyway, I think there's some places that it could really work. Like, be a good time, you know?
I'm glad you
like, what if you're a dog? What if you're a dog and then you die and then they build like a puppy rescue where you used to live, and now you get to keep haunting the place with all these little puppy friends?
I think you've just finally like calmed my spiral anxiety that I have when this goes on, and I'll say, oh, okay, maybe it'll be a safe haven for puppies one day. End of thought. End of spiral.
But then, like, I'm not on the first floor right now. So when that puppy building is created, I'm currently in the sky. So I'm like, would I be haunting the puppy haven, or would I be haunting the sky above? And that's what they're always fucking looking at up there. It's just me just floating around trying to haunt them.
Oh my God, that's what they're staring at. I knew it was
We've
ghosts.
spiraled again.
What?
Okay.
Oh shit. I didn't even notice. I'm back. Sorry.
Okay. So we kind of actually just touched on this because I don't know how we got there, but we did find our way.
You tell me. I have no idea what you're about to say.
So in 1980, the place opened as a theme park called Alton Towers, and stories about the roller coasters, like the lore about the theme of a lot of the roller coasters actually have to do with the history of the towers. So, for example,
I was going to ask that. Okay, cool.
Just like how I was saying, like the Earls of Shrewsbury pub, you know?
That's, yeah. That's
They have a ride called or I don't even know if it's still there anymore, but at some point there was a ride there called Hex, the Legend of the Towers. And it's the lore of the chained oak tree. That's like the story and the set.
I fucking love that.
Right? Like,
yeah, I love that. That's actually really fun.
I would like to imagine that if it is a roller coaster about a haunted tree, then you have to be a little squirrel or something and you're in the tree. No?
You're just like rolling around the branches. I mean, listen, I am all about this. I like that they're leaning into it. I do.
Ironically, this ride is said to be haunted. Which I feel like that means it just breaks down a lot. And they're just saying it's
ooh, it's the ghost. Don't look at the man with the wrench behind the curtains. It's the hex is back.
Now that was good. Now that was a good. Now that was a
stupid
joke landed. Joke landed. So, can I tell you something so funny? Can I tell you something that has nothing to do with anything?
Please.
We went to a play recently. You would have eaten it up. We went to a play of Catch Me If You Can. And
what?
Our friend is in it. And Allison and I were sitting next to each other. And it was of course the only moment in like a 2.5 hour play where it was dead silent.
Oh no.
Allison's stomach, like it was like everyone around us looked at her. Like it was like not well hidden. And it was
like, are you okay?
Easily
like worried.
I've never heard it that loud or that long. It was literally like her stomach had a solo. Like, no. It was, I'm not kidding. I know I'm usually dramatic. No hyperbole. This stomach sound happened for like 30 long seconds. And it sounded truly like someone was moving furniture upstairs. Like it was the loudest sound in the world. And Allison, her face, because she's trapped. Like you can't go anywhere. So she's just sitting there taking the heat, knowing that everyone can hear this.
And she's like, they're like genuinely worried for her well-being. She's like, I'm fine.
There were people looking at her and then like back at the stage because they didn't want her to know that they could obviously hear. But it sounded like it sounded like a TV belch. Like it just like was the grossest sound. And it was when everything was silent. Even the actors on stage had to have heard it because we were close. Oh, it was so awful. Anyway, you just made me laugh like I wanted to in that theater. So I finally got to release it. That's what happened. Okay, sorry for the people who hate banter. This is where we've gone, apparently.
My bad.
So, Alton Towers is said to be haunted. There are a lot of places that still have original foundations of the building there or original parts of the building there. And visitors have often seen people in Victorian-era clothing walking around and throwing things at guests, including rocks.
Oh, whoa, that's like, you're like, oh, what a cool reenactment. And then they chuck a rock at you and you're like, okay, Jesus.
Also, like, was that their version of fun before there was an amusement park here? They just threw rocks?
Great question. Or is that like what they would do if like peasants came toward their property? They're like, get away, you know?
Shoo.
Shoo.
Imagine if you gave them a hoop and stick.
Oh, the delight.
They wouldn't be throwing rocks at you anymore, would they? Because they'd have something to do with those hands.
It's a merrymaking they would have had.
The merrymaking.
Or made, I guess.
That's their version of an amusement park. Just give them a hoop and stick and a hill. They're going to lose their minds.
What else? You need a marble maybe and you're set.
There's also apparently the apparition of a man that haunts the banquet hall, which I don't know why it's not called the Earls of Shrewsbury, but okay.
Not acceptable, but yeah.
And people feel his very looming presence. They hear heavy footsteps when they sense him. And they've also seen dark figures appear and vanish.
Oh.
And after seeing Harry Potter World, I just don't know what's real anymore. Like, I feel like if I was told that place was haunted, I'd be like, one, is it part of the lore? And two, even if it's really haunted, the rest of the special effects here are so good, I can't tell if that was a ghost.
Yeah. And like, if you ask, how can you trust that they're not just like playing along? Like, oh, there's no, But like, that reminds me of when I was at, where I saw the ghost of Mr. Whaley at the Whaley house. And I was like, oh, that's fun. That's part of the reenactment, And I didn't believe them. I was like, well, why would they would tell me, no, that's just a ghost. But like,
Right.
it's hard to say.
In 2007, investigators went in, which I love that they got to be in an amusement park at night.
That's the ultimate dream.
It's a dream. And their medium sensed a large man wearing a hood who was always angry. And shockingly, he's not the one that throws rocks at people. So,
no, he sounds like an executioner, doesn't he? Like a hooded man,
right? An angry hooded man.
I don't.
You have to be angry to be able to kill people for a living.
I would imagine it has to be a part of your nature. Yeah.
One member on that investigation team also walked out that night with scratches all over their head. And a woman has been seen wearing a long, dark dress, and she appears very real. People smell a perfume that follows her. And one employee actually thought that she was a park visitor who tried to stay after closing. So he ran up to her, told her to leave, and then she faded away in front of him. Which, like, she did exactly what he said.
That's true. Like, he should
leave.
I hope he's
okay.
Happy.
Poof.
Bye.
Some people think she was actually the governess who managed the estate, which she has to be looking around now going, I have lost control. Like, what is this?
She wakes up one morning and is like, wait, what the fuck happened overnight? Oh,
no. The guy who bought Alton Towers in the 1920s, his great-grandson has blogged about the hauntings his family has seen on the property.
Oh, that's fun.
His name is Will, and he grew up there. He didn't grow up there, but he spent a lot of time there as a child. His family also stayed there a lot. And he's said that there is just too much evidence over the years that his family has caught it is definitely haunted. He said the gardener there actually used to see a man all the time in the gardens with him wearing medieval clothing, and he thought that this guy was like in cosplay or like a reenactor or something. And
he thought his grandpa hired an actor to just wander around the yard.
Yeah, I was like, was this during
is this
amusement
a normal
park
thing
time, or
is this like a thing people do over there?
He was always wearing medieval clothes, and the gardener would always try to wave at him and like talk to him, and the guy never waved back. And so he was like, "What the fuck is this guy's deal? Like, he's dressed weird and he won't be polite. That's a crazy
kind
combo.
of an asshole." Yeah.
And so after years of trying to interact with this man, the gardener started noticing, like, wait a minute, that man has never aged. What is going on? Like,
oh, weird. Ew. Oh, so this whole time he's been seeing him? Oh,
imagine for years waving to somebody. Like, get the hint. Like, read the room.
Read the room.
But yeah, long enough that he was like, this guy isn't aging. Something's going on.
I would say.
After years of trying to interact with him, realized he wasn't aging. Another time, there was a catering manager who was noticing that dishes would go missing and then reappear in odd places, which I hate that.
That's not good.
And in the 60s and 70s, which I think still up to now, there was a gift shop that had a poltergeist. And no matter how many times the store clerks would move them back, a whole collection of dolls would move themselves on the shelves to always be facing the wrong way.
Ooh, I hate that. Yuck.
Facing the wall. And then every time you turn them back, you come in the next day, they're turned back again.
Yucko. Ooh.
Then one day, the gift shop's, like, several boxes of little toy soldiers, all of them were removed from their boxes and scattered all over the floor, and only the ones holding weapons were all face down dead. As if dead.
What the fuck?
But then all the ones who weren't holding weapons were standing up. So it's giving pacifist, like,
I suppose, in like a weird backhanded way.
In a weird way.
I murdered all the one. I'm a pacifist. I murdered all the people with weapons. They're dead.
I feel like
now.
there's some sort of symbolism there that I'm not picking up on.
Yeah.
Other dolls here would disappear and reappear. They'd move on their own. They would also be taken out of their boxes. There were dolls in the store that would be dressed up by unseen hands throughout the night, where people would walk in the next day and the dolls would have jewelry on them, or they would have books in their lap like they were reading.
Do you think it's a kid?
I feel like it has to be a kid. Like, I feel like it has to be a kid dressing up a little stuffed animal.
And like playing with toy soldiers and stuff. I mean, it sounds like a kid would. I mean, again, like we've talked about this a million times, but like where would you haunt? I would haunt a gift shop, obviously. Like, what a delightful place to haunt.
It's not the worst place. I bet it's air conditioned.
True. Lots of toys.
Lots of toys. But also like maybe poltergeisty because like the dolls keep rearranging
The
themselves in like
turning
creepy
themselves
ways.
around is like unsettling. Yeah, that part feels kind of sinister.
Also, books that were in the gift shop, their pages would get ripped out and left all over the floor.
Ew.
And that, again, we've talked about this, but like, do you think the books are actually like the pages are tearing themselves, or you blink and then the pages all of a sudden
Is it like they're
on the
just
floor?
transporting? God, I wish I
one
knew.
time the
Or- yeah.
catering, one time the catering manager came in and found only specific letters from pages had been ripped out of a book.
They're like, I've been trying to send you a fucking message and no one's reading into it, so I guess I'll have to ransom note this.
Well, so the letters spelled out Dolly. And Dolly was the catering manager's nickname as a kid.
Oh my God, what the fuck?
So, like, was it something following her? Like, what, like, what was that? And also, apparently, it was a nickname from a dark time in her childhood. So, it's like.
No, I was going to say, is that like a comforting thing? But doesn't sound like it.
But so it's almost like, is it a dark thing from that time period? Or is it like trying to, like, poke at her?
Is using you. Yeah, using your weaknesses.
Also on the property, Will's aunt and uncle and their kid stayed there for a while. Their house, you could overlook the property and see the old chained up tree from their house. And one night their daughter, whose room faced the tree directly, woke up screaming. And the next night her mom decided to sleep in the room to see what she was so scared of. And this mom, her name's Annie, she woke up in the middle of the night to the room being ice cold. She felt the need to keep her eyes closed because something was in the room with her. Oof. And she could see, or she could sense something dark standing over her bed. And she could sense that it was not human. She could smell the scent of something she'd only smelled before in the old towers nearby. She felt breath on her neck. And she got the weird feeling that this thing had 4 legs.
Ew! I like how it probably is like deciding what to tell her. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's probably like, and I'd like 4 legs, so we'll tell her that.
That's your alien brain where you're like, oh, they can communicate with you in your head. It's like,
yeah.
It's like, oh, you want to imagine what's going on here? Okay, 4 legs. We're straddling
it's like
the bed.
You don't have to open your eyes. I'll still tell you. Ugh.
Well, so she finally got the nerve to open her eyes, and nothing was there except on either side of her were 2 indents on the bed, as if 4 legs were standing over her. Ah! So 2, like on her left side, 2 imprints of feet. On the right side, 2 imprints of feet.
So it was like standing with it,
literally standing over her
legs. Oh, that's horrific. That's horrific.
Then the indents started moving on their own. They would disappear and reappear as if the creature and all 4 legs were stomping on her bed.
Oh, ew. It was like, I'm still here.
Ugh. She pulled an M, and although she wasn't religious, she said something about Jesus. And the creature's energy went away immediately. I'm telling you, it works. I don't know what it is.
It must work. It must work. I'll give you that.
So I'm imagining a story happened in between here. But the chief of police finds out that this place is haunted, and he decides to get to the bottom of things. So he asks if he can stay the whole night by himself in the towers. But he flees in the middle of the night after he heard footsteps, banging, and his dog started growling and like the fur on his back raised.
Oh, if the police dog is upset, I'm like, I don't feel safe here.
Yeah, if the trained dog is freaking out, let's all get out.
Yeah.
There was also another paranormal investigator that came through, and this is probably my favorite thing I've ever said in any episode. A paranormal investigator came through, was walking into the gift shop that's like super haunted, and had a weird feeling, and approached the people who worked there and said, "Have any gay people been here recently?"
What?
Said, "Have any children or gay people been here recently?" And they said, oh, actually, a gay couple not only used to like work this place for several years, but they lived on the property, which it's so cottage-core lesbian. I can't even handle it.
For sure. Yes.
They literally lived in a cottage nearby. Like,
sounds
so gay.
idyllic.
And with no explanation, the investigator went, oh, that makes sense because gay people attract poltergeists. Again,
pardon
no
me?
explanation, but I gotta know where he's getting his findings.
Because I was gonna say, children, I've heard the preteens, the hormones, the craziness, of puberty can attract a poltergeist. What about gay people? They're chaotic energy?
Is it that we're sinning or something?
What is it? That's weird.
But also, like, I love that even if that had no real, like, sound logic behind it, I love that the queers love, like, ghosts and shit. Like, it works out very well for, like,
Maybe
it's like, well, that's on brand.
Maybe it's like a double, like, it's like they're fulfilling their own prophecy. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, well,
the ghosts love the gays love the ghosts.
Exactly. Like, why not?
The girls and the ghouls.
Girls and the ghouls, we're all just having a party. Yeah.
Which, like, by the way, why was that never, like, our thing? Like, boozers and shakers. Why weren't we just the girls and the ghouls?
Yeah. Girls and the ghouls. Hang on.
The ghouls, the gays, and the theys.
The ghouls, gays, theys. Ghouls, gays,
I mean, well, we figured it out. I mean, it took, like, 7 years. But we got there.
Finally.
So another time Annie was finishing up work and she smelled that familiar perfume and the room got really cold and she heard a loud thud. And this was when she was on her own. She heard a thud behind her and a book had fallen by itself. The book was titled A Stranger is Watching.
Ew, this ghost loves his little wordplay. It is so creepy.
He feels gay. Like, he's giving a little fabulous haunting. Like, he's like, it's gonna be aesthetic. We're gonna love it. He probably misses the cottage-core lesbians that used to work there. He's like, hang on a second, I lost my people.
Go? God.
So all of us, Annie suddenly gets this intense feeling that she needs to bring the book home, which she should have not listened to that, I'm sure. But she brings it home and she thinks there's like a dark spirit or something that was connected to the book or attached to the book and tried to attach to her.
Great.
And her husband claims that he decided that he was going to burn this book because he was so freaked out about it. So he throws it into the bonfire.
Okay.
And the book reappeared in the house later.
Oh, the ghost was just begging him to throw it in the fire. Do it, I dare you.
Flaming.
See what happens. No, Flaming. Do it. Set it on fire. Here. I dare you.
So Annie's daughter then did a school project about the book, which, wow, I'm sure that didn't go well. And
but
the teacher
for her.
The teacher asked if she could borrow the book and then never returned it. So some people think that she just destroyed the book herself.
Good.
She was so freaked out about this kid's presentation.
Free libraries, those little free libraries.
I feel like
problem now.
I feel like that's gonna be Leona's future one day. She's gonna bring in like a skull or something from your studio, and the teacher's gonna be like, "That's great, sweetie. Can I see that?" And then just like
Let
fucking
me just hold
smash
it for a second, chuck it behind her. Yeah, honestly, I don't doubt it.
Also, last thing I'll say is Will's family. They also apparently once walked past the old chained oak on their property. And walked past a group of New Age druids who were chanting and performing a sacrifice under the tree.
Okay.
And when they all noticed each other, the druids stopped chanting and silently stared at them until they walked away and out of sight. And then went back to chanting.
That's, scarier than any ghost, as far as I'm concerned.
That's also scarier than them, like, charging after you, being like, you didn't see anything, get away. Like, to just death stare you on your own property is so violating in so many ways.
Yeah, like, they're like, we're not moving. You better move. I mean, okay, I'm out.
Yeah. Oof. Anyway, apparently that's the last big thing that Will reported. But that is the property of Alton Towers.
Emma, what a story.
Thank you.
And I can't believe we started with a theme park and then
I know. I really tried my hardest to say what I needed to say, do what I needed to do, and not get hyperfixated on it.
Yeah.
But tonight might be a different story.
Yeah. Now you have all the time in the world. That's crazy. I think to do a haunted investigation at a theme park is probably the pinnacle of what this podcast would consider success. So maybe
it'll
happen someday.
You said it, not me. Is this when I tell everybody that I've been looking at old home videos and I found out that I had a fucking Queen's accent when I was a
It
kid?
is. Someone asks little M, like, hey, do you have any pets? And M goes, a dog.
A
It's like,
dog.
I have a
And like
dog.
I'd been my parents used to have like really thick accents, and it just never occurred to me that I would pick up on that. But I had one until I moved to Virginia, and like 2 or 3 years in, it faded. But in the videos that I have, there's all these clips of me talking and walking, and good
It is
coffee.
so cute. A little baby with that accent. It's honestly
Of all the
precious.
accents I saw for myself, I did not see that. But whatever. I just sounded like Fran Drescher at 5. What else is new?
And like, what could we ask for? Like, what more could we ask for? What could be better?
It was a gift even to me. I was like, at 30, I'm finding out I had a fucking accent my whole life.
I didn't find out till I was like in my 20s that I had a German accent till I was about 6. I feel like if we put, I know I've already said this, but like put clips of you, clips of me with our little accents back to back, like we would have been quite a duo. I don't know what people would have made of the two of us, but it would have been a mess.
Why are you talking like that? What are you doing?
Yeah, you would have been like, what's wrong with you?
What the hell's going on? Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm glad you liked the roller coaster extravaganza. That was
I did,
Alton
because I know how
Towers.
much you like it. I'm like, that's
I
such
loved
an M story. Well,
Tell
M,
us a Christine story now.
okay, this is actually an M story because
Ooh.
I
Why?
don't want you to be mad at me, but I'm
Oh, God.
covering something you've already covered, but I'm just doing
You're sick.
the crime part of it.
Prison. Why? What did you do?
This is the story of, say it in your accent, the Amityville murders.
The horror. The Amityville horror.
There it is. The horror.
I don't know how to do it anymore. Sorry to all New Yorkers listening. But okay, great. Hey, we haven't covered that since like episode fucking 4 or something.
I was gonna say, do you would have a guess what episode? And it was indeed number 4. Good memory, or like freakishly weird fun fact that you knew on the top of your head.
B.
Can I tell you also that I listened to that episode yesterday? And
I'm sorry.
Thank you so much.
Don't say anything else. I don't even want to know.
No, I can't have to. I was gonna take notes on your story, and said I just took notes on the dumb shit we said. I was like, this is outrageous. Also, my audio, I was like talking, you had a mic, I was talking, like my audio was going through the computer. I'm like, we clearly didn't even figure out how to use a mixer. And we were like, oh, we have all these fans. Like, I don't know. It was just so embarrassing to listen to.
Our moms? Yeah.
Literally, we said, we thought our moms would listen, but now we have real fans. And I'm like, okay,
I think we had like 3 people, and that actually was 3 more than we ever thought. So
yeah, it's like one extra person who was your cousin.
Yeah.
So like, good for us, but also the audio. Oh my god, I was like clearly just talking through the computer, and also
my research was shit back then, so it's probably actually really good that we're doing a revamp.
I gotta say, I listened to the whole thing and I went, we really upped our research game. I don't know what we were doing back then, but like clearly just reading.
Remember when I used
Wikipedia
to
or
write my
something.
notes on like fucking notepad
I literally
paper?
have legal pad paper with your handwriting where you wrote, and like that was always impressive to me because that's a lot of work to write it all by hand. But
I
then
don't know
at one
why
point
I
you
did
literally
that.
said like November of some year. I didn't write down the date.
Oh,
Anyway,
God.
I'm like, what is wrong with us? Like, we didn't even write the date down. And then, anyway, it's just like, it was just so cringy,
Yeah, I really, for the first like 100 episodes, I really would like to just wipe the slate and like no one's ever hearing them again.
It's embarrassing, but I feel like it's part of the journey,
No, like the Disney vaults where they just put like Snow White in there or something. And
yeah.
We should have it, and that's why we drink vault, where
but we never open it. Yeah.
Never open it ever again.
It's like what they would do to people, torture them, like brick them up into the walls. We'll just brick all our old episodes up into the walls.
Brick up our notes.
Brick up our notes. Do you remember? Oh, do you remember? Obviously, none of us remember. But do you have a guess as to why we drank that week? It's a fun fact. There different reasons, but
probably something a lot less dramatic than.
Oh my god,
near heart failure every day. I don't know.
I was gonna say, now we're like, our hearts are giving out, my brakes are giving out. Well, back then, apparently the reason I drank was because I was on Zillow, and like houses are so expensive, and I'm like, houses in Los Angeles are like $600,000, and now I'm like, they've like probably tripled since then. So nice.
They sure have.
nice going. And then you were saying like, I don't know. Your reason for drinking was that
I'm
this is
sorry.
not a joke. You said your reason for drinking is that you've been so busy you don't have time to get to the gym before work in the mornings. And I'm like,
You know,
what? And you know
that
what you said?
was
You said,
what?
well, typically on a typical weekday, I like to run about 5 miles a day.
Yeah,
And
it was a
I'm
different
sitting here
time.
you ran 5 miles a day?
It was
Since
a
when
different
did you
time.
run 5 miles? That's more than a 5K.
I
I
that
think one
was
time I actually was like, do you really run 5 miles a day? And you were like, well, on an elliptical. And I was like, okay, that's not the same.
No, I would do half on an elliptical, and then I'd either walk the other half on the elliptical, or I would do, or like, no, not elliptical, sorry, the treadmill. I would do
Mm,
half on the treadmill, and then I'd either walk the other half on the treadmill, or I would do the second half if I was really tired that day on the elliptical.
what a time.
What a fucking time. That was like, what, 60 pounds ago?
You literally complained that you didn't have time to run 5 miles a day. And I'm sitting there listening to this going,
Hey,
who are
same,
these
same.
people? Who are these people? I've never heard of them before.
If we go back to
Um,
2017, let's let that M know that I never get back to the gym. So
you all
whoops.
Yeah, sorry. This is the end of the beginning of the end. You also said this dog hates me about Geo. And the entire
Oh.
episode you can just hear him clip clapping around. There's like so much noise. It's like the worst audio ever.
Let's take this moment then to really appreciate the OGs who still listen, because the fact that you endured that, which
Really?
also is a testament to how far podcasting has come, because maybe that was good back then. Like,
I was gonna say, I don't think today that would have like cut through
that wouldn't have
everything.
flown. No, I
No.
think in 2017, when not everyone had a podcast, it was you,
No,
just
I think
you
you're
just listened
totally
to what you
right.
had.
Because like I remember Googling like how to set up podcasting equipment. There was not a single article. Like there was no WikiHow. There was no like here's an Amazon page on like which mics to buy. None of that. There was nothing. So we had to like read the instruction manual. Like it was 1955 and like figure out. Clearly, we didn't even do that right. But
Well,
yeah,
thank you to everybody who's been listening since then. And for some reason, despite all of the flaws, you really hunkered down. And it's still bad. You still listen, but it's nice that you've kept up. I appreciate your dedication. That's all.
We
You're very
do.
loyal.
And honestly, like every time someone says I've been listening since like the early days, I'm just shocked. I'm shocked. Like that sounds kind of like sad, but it's true. I'm like shaken to my core every time someone says like, "Oh no, I've been listening forever."
Yeah, it still blows my mind. Or even when people now say, "Oh, I just found them and I've been binging the episode," which I'm very appreciative. But in today's world where there is better audio in first episodes, it's like, why did you listen to ours? And that was
And they're like, I started from the beginning. I'm like, God bless, you're
yeah.
I mean, listen.
We appreciate you. You're the reason we have the lives we have today. You're the reason I stopped going to the gym. So,
oh my God.
Thank you.
Thank
I would
you
rather
so
have all
much.
of you than ever run another 5 miles. So thank
Also,
you.
oh my God. Me too. Not that that's hard to say, but me too.
That was what lonely, sad M looked like. And now look at me. Look at me now.
Look at you now. Moving right along. This is the Amityville murders, but it's the murders part. So
Okay.
you covered the ghost part. And I listened back because I wanted to make sure I wasn't like doubling, any information or like just retelling the same story. But it is a different story because you referenced the murder, but you didn't really like go into detail. So that's what I'll do today. So we've got the notorious Amityville house of the Amityville Horror. I don't know how to do it. Horror.
I don't know.
Horror. Okay. And it's on Long Island. On Long Island. I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm stopping. In New York. And in this show, in the episode, you said, my dad claimed that he lived next door to it, but I don't think he's telling the truth, which is one of the funniest things you've said.
I still...
You stand by it.
I still think that. Yeah. He grew
You're
up...
like, my dad says he grew up on... Or you're like, he grew up on Long Island. Is that right? That part's true?
Yes. And he grew up near Amityville, but
And you're like, he says he lives next door, but I don't think that part's true.
Yeah, I don't believe that for a minute. But it was a good story when I was 10. I was like, oh
for
shit,
sure. It's a great story. It's just now we have to be, I just love that you already called it episode 4. You're like, that's bullshit. I do run 5 miles a day. but my dad did not live next door to Amityville.
Like honestly, of those two sentences, I would more believe today that my dad lived in the Amityville
That's
house or
why I
something than
asked
that
you,
I ever
because I was
ran.
like, did I miss something about like your exercise? Like back then, it didn't even faze me when you said 5 miles. I was like, oh, cool. Now I'm like,
That was my prop house days, and
I see.
then
It's a
I
different
stopped,
time.
and then I started remote working. Then I don't drive to the gym anymore.
Yeah, sure.
I
Whatever
blame
you
you.
say.
So
Yeah, you're welcome. You blamed everyone else who listened a minute ago, but I guess now it's my fault.
everyone but
Okay.
myself. Yeah.
Well, sure. The notorious Amityville house, located on Long Island, New York. Now, I'm going to give you a quick background on the actual land. I know we've been talking about land today. So long before the house was built, which, by the way, the address at the time was 112 Ocean Avenue, and it was built in the 1920s, Amityville had the area at least, had a storied history of its own. So according to the Matinicock tribal nation, the island was home to 13 tribes of the Algonquin family, a group of peoples who spoke the Algonquin language and who still live on Long Island today. European Americans began colonizing the area in the 17th century when Amityville was founded as a settlement, but it wasn't fully incorporated as the village of Amityville until 1894.
Okay.
So Ronald and Louise DeFeo are the couple that purchased this infamous house in late June of 1965. And the husband, Ronald, worked at a car dealership that his father-in-law owned. And the DeFeos lived pretty comfortable lives. Louise's father, so it almost feels like the father-in-law, like Ronald's father-in-law, aka Louise's father, is sort of like kind of has I don't want to say it like in a negative way, but it seems like he has a lot of like purchase in this relationship, like a lot of power. Like he hired his son-in-law, he bought them the house. It almost feels like he's kind of pulling the strings a little bit.
Sure.
So reportedly he bought them the house so they could move out of their Brooklyn apartment, and he is also said to have given the family tens of thousands of dollars just as spending money. And they have these which we didn't mention, and I don't think I realized at the time, but like they had these like famously lavish family portraits painted of all the kids and the family. And I don't know if you've seen them, but there's something like unsettling about, of course, seeing them now after the murders, because it's like they're like larger than life, these like massive oil paintings. And so they're kind of, they were known for these like massive family portraits. And so the DeFeos lived in the house for nearly a decade, and they had 5 children: Ronald, who was nicknamed Butch, Dawn, D-A-W-N, Allison, Mark, and John Matthew. So Ronald, the oldest, aka Butch, who was named after his father, was born in Brooklyn in 1951, and many accounts say he was a survivor of relentless parental abuse from his father. And this was so widely known that other adult family members witnessed Ronald Jr.'s father throw him against walls, hit him until he was covered in bruises. And these are other adults in the family who had witnessed this abuse happen.
Mm-hmm.
Ronald was also bullied pretty badly in school, so he really didn't have like a safe haven anywhere. He didn't have a place where he could let his guard down. He was even known to pay some older guys in his school to like protect him, to like keep an eye out, to keep him from getting...
He was like paying for security because he was so stressed out. Jeez.
Which I'm sure didn't help the bullying, right? Like I'm sure that was only more fodder.
They were like, go tell your security guard, blah, blah, blah.
Right, exactly. And like, oh, you're using money to like protect your, I'm sure that this was not a good system, but it was the only way he could like get through it. And like Saoirse, our researcher, put a really great note here, that like it's spoiler alert if you don't know what happens in Amityville, a really horrible multiple murders about to take place at the hands of Ronald Jr. And I just feel like the way that it's portrayed I don't want it to come across as, oh, because he was a victim of abuse, that's why he like murdered his whole family. Because typically, and like Saoirse made a great point here that like actually a lot of times the bullies themselves are like research actually shows that bullies themselves are the most likely to continue being like perpetrating violence. And so, you know, obviously many people survive bullying and abuse every day without like murdering their whole family. So even though the media sometimes is like, oh, this active shooter situation, this perpetrator was a social outcast and like that's why he did it, like a lot of that is very skewed and not necessarily how the world works. But of course we know much more about Ronald Jr.'s background because that's what the sources focus on and that's kind of what's relevant.
It's so much easier, well, not easier, but it's so much more telling now, given at the time there wasn't a lot of active shooting going on like there is today with people around his age. You know, like in today's world, he would be one of many that is just was quote an outcast and didn't know what to do and decided to turn a gun on people that he was around all the time. And
that's
like
a very good point. That's a very good point.
It's interesting that back then we probably wouldn't have had the same vocabulary that we would today for someone like him, because now it feels like
so different. Yeah.
Every week, sometimes multiple times a week, we're overanalyzing someone who he probably would have hung out with, of like an outcast who feels like they don't have anybody, who feels alone, who has a lot of pent up anger. Maybe there's issues at home, like all the usual like buzzwords that we
tropes.
hear.
The
tropes. And all of them do something very similar to what he did. And so, I mean, he would be clumped into a whole category these days versus being this one outlier, incredible really story.
Point. That's a really good point. And I feel like that needs to be like noted, just because like, you know, again, just because someone survives familial abuse, like does not make them a, you know, a shooter.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah. So,
but it is interesting that at the time it was an outstanding case, whereas today, very sadly, it is like it happens every fucking Tuesday.
Fucked up as it is, like children getting shot is not like the most outrageous headline you've ever heard.
If that story happened today, it would have not been the giant case.
It probably would not have been as and I think
it would have still made some news, but it wouldn't have been notorious 50 years later.
Exactly. And I think like obviously part of the reason it became notorious is the following owners and all this and like his claims. But you're right, it would have probably been a drop in the bucket nowadays versus back then where it was like so shocking and jarring.
Yeah.
And of course it is still shocking and jarring. It's just now we have much more.
There's a lot more cases like this. I mean, now it's happening a lot more in schools than homes, but it's you know, anyway.
It's not.
We could go on forever and ever about this.
I totally agree with you, and you know, this is just my little caveat that I want to throw out there. So, Ronald started suffering from violent outbursts, and these violent outbursts made his friends and family really like uncomfortable, and they did not feel safe around him. He started struggling in school. He started fighting with his father. He was expelled from high school. And he began to struggle with a substance use disorder. They tried to intervene. And back then, you know, this is not as standard, but they did try to get him professional mental health intervention. But that did not do anything. And so his family was at a total loss. And all they could do is try to keep him happy and peaceful. He was given expensive gifts. His parents bought him guns to add to his gun collection, which is something that he was very proud of. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe. And no comment.
Okay. They gave him a job at the family car dealership, and they paid him even if he didn't show up, even if he did poor performance, which was the usual. He often skipped work. He would show up late, leave early, and they just paid him to keep him calm and happy. Okay. Employees were extra polite to him because they were like, we don't want an outburst. We're just gonna kind of skirt around this guy. And Ronald would eventually be accused of stealing from the dealership $19,000 in cash and checks.
Ooh. And at the time, it was $19,000.
Yep. Which today is worth approximately $108,000.
Holy Shit. Okay.
And he stole this with an accomplice, and he told police that he was just on his way to deposit at the bank on behalf of his workplace, but they'd been held up on the way to the bank and someone else stole the money from him, was his backstory. And police didn't think this lined up, so they went to the dealership and found out, yeah, this was all bullshit. He had stolen it himself. And so Ronald Sr., his dad, asked police to please take it easy on Ronald. Like, the last thing he wanted was to get his son worked up and sent home and, lash out at them. So he asked police to please take it easy on him. And there are a couple more stories that, for example, he allegedly jokingly threatened a friend at gunpoint on a hunting trip and then just like moved on. Like nothing happened, like hilarious joke. Another story goes that during a fight with his father, he actually pulled the trigger of a gun, but it failed to fire and they just moved on. So there are couple of those massive red flags. He was also charged with larceny, and as part of that, basically the charge was that he had used his family boat as a getaway vehicle, and he had been on probation for drug use. And so, as you can imagine, he began hanging out with sort of like a rough and tumble crowd. They were known to fight and get into all sorts of antics, but they always ended up back like in the same kind of small group. And he would oftentimes bring his friends over late at night while his whole family was upstairs asleep. And the friend group would just hang out and drink. They had this like beautiful home, which now is just known as a creepy, beautiful home. But at the time, obviously, was just like this gorgeous home on the water. And one friend, for example, told the New York Times, it was a beautiful home, very expensive. They had a big bar with champagne and everything. We would drink and play music, but I never met his family. Sometimes, apparently, his mom would yell from upstairs, like, please turn the music down. But that's the only way his friends even knew that his family was there. Like, he would just say, come hang out at my house. And, like, everyone would just kind of assume, like, no one's home. And then the mom would be like, can you turn down the music? And they were all asleep upstairs, but they were too scared. They were like walking on eggshells around him, essentially.
I'm really glad you covered it this way because obviously since episode 4, the creepy part of it or the ghost part of it is really like the part that people hear, and like everyone's so focused on the hauntings and no one actually knows the like part of the story, spoiler alert, is that he thinks he claimed he was possessed. But with all this backstory, I can see why that might not have been the case. Like maybe he was just, in the wrong crowd, going through it, had clearly some psychological stuff going on.
Had access to weapons,
access to a lot of guns that they were giving him more guns when he had violent outbursts to appease him, which not blaming the victim, just backstory.
Yeah.
But so it's and all you ever hear is like, oh, this guy killed people. And
yeah, and that's exactly kind of how I felt about it. And when we were searching, like suggested it, I was like, well, I'm already covered this. And then I went back and listened. I was like, oh, but like you covered like the
ghosts,
the story, like the lore, like the one that's like in the media.
Famous part. Yeah,
the famous part. And I like had no kind of concept about, like, I really didn't realize how much.
Well, because the story always makes you think like, oh, out of nowhere he just went fucking crazy.
Like, how could someone do that? Right.
And then he said like it was the story sounds like overnight he really was possessed by something, and but I would have never known. This whole time I had no idea that there was like years of important information that led up to that.
Yeah, and I feel like the story of him, the story of the murder of his family, all of that gets kind of sometimes brushed aside to like tell the more like
sensationalized,
sensational exactly version. So it's worth telling the backstory, I guess. So yeah, he would have these people over, and it was like this gorgeous 3-story home with a pool, like just the perfect place for teenagers to hang out, except that his siblings and parents were asleep upstairs, but they just let him do it. They didn't want to like mess with anything, set him off. One night, for example, a friend remembered Ronald breaking a pool stick in half in a moment of anger. He just would have these like outbursts, and sometimes they became physical. So, despite confirmed and alleged stories about Ronald, the DeFeos were generally well liked by their neighbors. Like they were a pretty pillar of the community type family. They were also very good to their neighbors. They went out of their way to befriend and support them. There was one neighbor named Catherine O'Reilly who lost her husband, and they were like extremely supportive and kind and like helped her through her grieving during that time. Ronald Sr. would drive a 16-year-old to work at her family's restaurant in Brooklyn every single day because she didn't have a ride. Like they were just very good to the people around them. Another example is that the family would give out homemade pastries to friends and neighbors, and the assistant pastor at their church called them, which I feel like isn't like supposed to be a compliment, but not really, an average good family. I'm like, okay,
yeah,
well,
that's a weird backhanded situation.
average.
I mean,
not necessarily.
and
the
also that
nicest
was
thing.
someone from their church. I feel like that's church lingo very quick.
Right?
Of like,
you feel like it's like nuanced. Like, what does it mean? Yeah,
it's like, oh, you're average. Like,
yeah, you're just average. It's like
right down the line, not
it's
bad,
like, do you
not
even
good.
remember who I am? Like, it sounds like you're just.
If I invited you
bullshitting.
to a party, it'd be like, we don't feel a certain way.
If I'm in the area, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're gonna have some of those great pastries laying out, maybe I'll stop by.
Yeah, some days you're better than others. No, I get what he meant though. Of like, oh, they were just like normal.
Like they were standard.
You wouldn't see anything like this coming kind of family.
No, you wouldn't like look twice. So that part of the story actually is kind of true. Like it was very shocking when this happened because they just seemed like such a typical American family.
Yeah.
The family was pretty religious and they prayed together on Sunday nights. They actually installed a statue of Joseph holding baby Jesus on the front lawn, complete with lights and a fountain.
Okay.
So that's nice.
That's great.
A sign in front of the house read High Hopes, and it was almost like they had named the house that. So a lot of locals would refer to the house as High Hopes, which is so crazy to think like it had this identity as High Hopes, and no one knew like, oh, one day this will have like a real big identity,
and now it's like
international.
Any hope
no hope,
do.
right? It's like yikes, that turned really quickly on its head. But it did really seem like one of those everything looked fine from the outside, like everything looks perfectly normal from the outside. And I'm sure a lot of this came from the parents like just putting out there what they wanted other people to see. So in 1974, we've got a household with Louise and Ronald Sr. Ronald Jr. is the oldest. He's 23. 18-year-old Dawn, 13-year-old Allison, 12-year-old Mark, and 9-year-old John Matthew. So the date is November 13th, 1974, and around 6:30 p.m., Ronald Jr. burst into an Amityville bar and started screaming, "You gotta help me. I think my mother and father are shot."
Oof.
So several people accompanied him from the bar back to 112 Ocean Avenue. They ran all the way there. The door was unlocked and one of the family dogs was barking at them as they went inside and up the stairs to Ronald's parents' room. And lo and behold, there were Louise and Ronald Sr., both dead in bed. Someone had shot them while they slept. They then, of course, went to the other bedrooms to check on the children, and tragically, all 4 of Ronald's younger siblings had also been shot to death in their beds. All 6 of the victims were lying face down in bed. Louise and Ronald Sr. had both been shot twice, and the children were each shot once. Someone called police while Ronald broke down outside, and when police arrived, Ronald told him he believed it was a mafia hit by a hitman named Louis Fellini. And his story was that he was at work, and it must have happened during the day when he was at work, and so he had no way of knowing until he got home. And when Ronald Sr. had failed to show up for work, Ronald told everyone he had no idea where his dad was. He tried to call him and didn't get an answer. And Ronald had often alluded to his dad having mafia connections. This was an Italian family, but friends thought like, his friends thought, oh, this is just a ploy to get like the bullies off his back, right? Like he's trying to make himself kind of like, they thought it was bullshit. Like, oh, my dad has
Sure.
mafia connections. And one of his
It's like, oh, my
friends
dad lived next to the Amityville house.
Yeah,
Bullshit.
exactly. You get it.
I get
We've
it.
all been there.
Mhm.
But one of his friends made a really good point, which kind of cracked me up. And I was like, oh, yeah, good point. He said, when you belong to the mafia, you don't talk about it. And I was like, oh, yeah.
Right.
So I imagine like all his blabbering on about the mafia and how his dad has mafia connections, like probably was. Most people brush that aside. But police were like, okay, well, it's worth checking. So they put Ronald in protective custody and they investigated the crime scene. And of course, immediately things did not add up. For one, all of the family members were in pajamas and in their beds. So, like he said, this must have happened during the day while I was at work. But that doesn't add up if they're all in bed in their pajamas.
Right. In their PJs, yeah.
Yeah. So investigators realized that this must have happened like well before Ronald went to work, putting him at the scene of the crime because he had slept there the night before.
Which is wild that he would have done this and then slept next to all of them.
And then just gone straight to work.
Well, like to brush your teeth knowing that in the other room is, I mean.
And then to spend all day out and about and then run into a bar screaming in hysterics. Like it's all an act. Ooh. It's very chilling. It's really chilling. So investigators realized, like, yes, this must have happened in the early morning before he left for work, not during the day, as Ronald had claimed. They also found ammo matching the murder weapon in Ronald's bedroom. And when they interviewed people who knew Ronald Jr., they were putting together a pretty troubling profile, and they pretty quickly knew he was probably involved. He started to change his story. He said Louis Fellini, this mobster, had woken him up with a gun to his head and made Ronald follow him around the house and watch him kill his family one at a time. But then, like, why would the hitman spare Ronald? Like,
right,
that didn't
exactly.
make any sense.
And also, why would he? It already ruins his credibility from when he ran in and he goes, "I think my parents got shot." It's like,
great point.
It's like, I
it's
thought
like,
you
wait,
watched
I
it
did
happen.
technically do it, but it was because someone forced me to do it.
Yeah,
like, it just didn't make sense. And so they were like asking him, like, go on, explain more. And he said, oh, well, then Louis Fellini threw the gun into a sewer. And investigators were like, this is not adding up. But they kept pressing him. And finally, he did confess to all 6 murders, which took place in the middle of the night / early morning hours before he went to ask for help. He said, it all started so fast. Quote, once I started, I just couldn't stop. It went so fast. It's chilling.
I mean, also, like, it would have to go fast if you just shot somebody and people are going to start running and hiding. So, like, if you want to get...
Yeah.
Which, like, I know it's a fucked up way to think, but, like, it has to happen fast. Once you pull the trigger once and everyone's heard a gunshot in the house...
Exactly.
If you are a killer of one person, there's witnesses now. So
there's a choice now. You either stop
or keep going, yeah.
And you're done and they know it was you, or you keep going and try to work your way out of it. So... tragically, he tried and it didn't work. He was arrested for the murder of both of his parents and his 4 younger siblings. And of course, even if they had known he was troubled or what have you, this was like a total shock to have not only the parents, but 4 small kids killed in their beds by their sibling, their oldest brother. Ronald's friends refused to believe it and were like trying to find a way to explain this to themselves and wondering if he had been set up. One friend said, I can see somebody having a quarrel with his father or mother, but those 4 children. I was talking to Ronnie just recently about how proud he was of his brother playing football. He'd never kill his brother. So they were just really shaken by this.
Do you think they were just like collateral damage of like, well, now that I've killed my parents, who's going to watch them? I don't want to have to deal with it. Like something...
I mean, it very well could be. It sounds very family annihilator, which is typically the father in a family, but
yeah, it could be him too.
I don't know. It's almost like you'd think it'd be easier to explain away, as fucked up as it is to even say this out loud, but like you'd think it'd be easier to explain away, like killing your parents, and you can say, or one of your parents saying, oh, we were in this heated argument, but they're like, there's no way to say my 9-year-old sibling,
right, my sister, like, who looks up to me. Yeah,
that part is just so far-fetched that like people could not wrap their heads around it. But Ronald did kill all 6 of them. And so in the following weeks, he would change his story over and over. People questioned how the family had slept through the gunshots because, like you mentioned, one gunshot goes off, and you imagine everyone hears it, but they were all still in their beds. The weapon that he used couldn't be equipped with a silencer, so there was no chance he had put a silencer on the weapon. Neighbors had reportedly heard the family's dog barking that night, but that was really normal. Their dog barked all the time, and so nobody like thought twice about it. But nobody else seemed to have heard the gunshots. Ronald, for his side of the story, he claimed he drugged his family with barbiturates at dinner so that they'd sleep through the massacre. And like maybe he was trying to look more compassionate, like, oh well, they were all asleep when I did it, like
Right.
they were unconscious.
It's like at least I did it painlessly or something.
Yeah, painlessly, like they didn't know what was happening. But of course, I have to report that that is also untrue. Because evidence suggested that Louise and Allison were both awake.
I mean, this is so terrifying, but this is also a reality that a lot of kids have to deal with now.
Yeah.
It's like, do you think they were just hiding in their beds and just hoping that
like under the
whoever
covers
was doing it wouldn't come into their room?
It's like that classic move of just like pulling the covers over your head and being like, what else can I do?
I mean, if you're a 9-year-old girl, like what else are you gonna do? Like just hope that it happens.
And why would you think? And apparently, oh God, this is in one of the documentaries I watched. He walked in and Louise, I think it was Louise, said, "What's happening? What happened?" And he just shot her.
So she thought that he had like protected the family for a second.
The safe one, right? He walks in, she's probably like, "Oh, thank God! Like my brother's here, whatever this commotion is, like he'll protect me." And then, so fucked up. So on October 14th, 1975, Ronald went to trial facing charges for all 6 murders. And Ronald's defense tried to paint Ronald to be this kind of sympathetic figure. They said they would plead insanity. They claimed that Ronald would hear voices that he believed to be demons who told him to kill his family. But there is a little bit of controversy because apparently Ronald like publicly opposed the insanity plea and was like, no, I don't want to be labeled like that's not part of my defense. But those who knew Ronald testified that like probably no mental illness had a part in his crime. They said maybe it was his issues with his family, rising tensions, drugs, his anger problem. But they were like, we don't, like the people who knew Ronald best were like, we don't think this was mental illness at play. It might have been a number of other things. But like, we don't think we don't think pleading insanity is going to work. So in the end, with all that said, he was found guilty on 6 counts of second-degree murder and sentenced to 6 concurrent terms of 25 years to life in prison.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a long, long time. And over the years, he changed his story several times, and he appealed for a retrial. He tried to convince the courts that, this is wild, that his sister Dawn had actually killed the entire family.
Oh my God. Throwing one of the victims under the bus is crazy.
Can you imagine? Like,
that's fucking crazy.
After all that, he
like, how'd you get away, big man? And like, why is she dead?
Yeah, here you go. This is what he said. His sister Dawn had killed their entire family and that he only killed her to protect himself at the end. Like he walked in on this and shot her, which like,
imagine if your parents were alive to hear you calling their dead daughter a monster. Are you kidding me?
It's horrific. And then what? You shot her, put her in her bed, and then pretend it doesn't make any sense that you would change your story all of a sudden to that. Like, I mean, literally the only story that makes sense is that a fucking demon came in. Like, that's the only believable story. And that's why I feel like
that's the one that landed, I guess.
Turned into the story, right? Like, it's the only way that I feel like you could maybe get a few people on your side.
Well, I also now, because that also makes me wonder because I mean, his most popular excuse or his most popular reason for having done this is that he was possessed by a demon. And now it makes me wonder too. I mean, if his family was incredibly religious, maybe he thought that would be a good scapegoat of like.
That's a good point. And I feel like Italian, Catholic, like I could definitely see that mindset, especially if they prayed every Sunday, were heavily religious.
They have a fucking
maybe
lit up fountain in their yard. Yeah. Like, I mean, I feel like it would be easy to relinquish guilt in some way by blaming the devil, or like, oh, temptation made me
Yeah.
do it, or some
And it almost
symbol,
makes some sense that like that would maybe be the first thing his head goes to, like, oh shit, like
something that Christians or
the
his
devil
family
told
would,
me. Yeah.
something his family would pity him for, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That like they maybe would accept as a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought of the like Catholic or the Christianity connection. Um, so yeah, he's changing his story left and right. The weirdest part to all of this, which I maintain, which I like, what's the word? I confess I don't have an explanation for this, and it does. I find it to be the weirdest part is that he has never given a motive. Like he has
Mm.
never said why he not only killed his parents, and maybe, you know, if he had been suffering abuse at the hands of his dad, you could like I guess get a motive, you know, you could definitely get a motive out of that. You know, when it comes to life insurance, he did once ask about collecting his father's life insurance policy, but it wouldn't explain all the siblings being killed.
I mean, I know
Like
they're
maybe
tropes, so I don't want to blame one of these things, but I could see in today's world, it'd be very easy to find buzzwords and very easy to find tropes for him if he was an outcast, or he was doing drugs, or he was hanging out with the wrong crowd, or he disrespected
mhm.
his family, or they, you know, he just had enough pent up rage and was over dealing with his dad, but then he realized he had to get rid of everybody else after he got rid of his dad. Like, I mean, I don't think I don't know if any of those would have been contributing factors, but I know they would have been considered today. I
Mhm.
feel like
Mhm.
he, um
That just seems so like hard like I mean, I'm not here to diagnose anyone. I would wonder if I haven't really looked into it. I will, but if he's been diagnosed with like any sort of mental health issues or just even psychopathy, because
yeah.
like the leap from saying one week to your friend, "I'm so proud of my brother and his baseball career. He's going to do
Yeah,
great." And
that's true.
I'm so proud of him. And then a week later, shooting him in the head and shooting your sister while she's like cowering in fear.
Could he
Like, it's just such a stretch. But I guess for somebody, and I'm not saying he is psychopathic, I have no idea. But for somebody like that, it could make more sense why he'd be like, well, it was
the
just a
only thing I
collateral
can think
damage, you know?
the only thing I can think of is like his I mean, the only thing I would first choose out of like the list of like, you know, the reasons he could have done it is just that if he really had these incredibly violent outbursts, maybe like could he have been like drunk or high on something, and like that plus the outburst caused some. I mean, he had
But it's almost
access
like
to
they were
guns
all
right next to his
asleep. So like
bed.
where was the outburst from? You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like in the heat of a passionate like, argument or fight with his parent,
Yeah,
you know,
that's
like they
true.
were all asleep, which is weird. But you're right, like if drugs were involved, it could have been heightened
Heightened outburst on top of
sensitivity.
a normal outburst, or I
Yeah.
don't know, but
I th-
I do know if he had his own collection of guns that he had access to. I mean, he could have just like come up with a scenario in his head, or if he was on something, I don't know if he was, and it could not be this at all, but I mean, I would wonder, like, was he tripping on something and he thought they were in
mhm.
a fight earlier, and then he freaked out and he just like had a gun next to him and he went, "Oh, well, that'll do."
Yeah,
Like,
and I guess
I don't know.
we don't know what happened the night before. Maybe there was a big falling out and he was just like mulling it over and over, you
Right,
know,
yeah.
maybe he
Or
built
maybe
it
he
up.
heard something about his parents and then he came home and was I mean, it could be anything.
I guess, yeah. And so it's frustrating because it's like he's given all these like reasons, like the devil made me do it, and like um a mobster named a pasta whatever rotini made me do it, and it's like, okay, but why? Like, why did you
Right.
do it? Like, I feel like there's no like real
Or was it
concrete.
like, was he trying to get, if he's talking about how he had mafia connections, like, which I don't totally believe, but if that was the case, was this like an initiation or something? Like, what?
And then they were like, never mind, we don't want you.
Right, like it's actually, you're causing a bit of a problem for us press wise.
Yeah, this is becoming a Hollywood blockbuster that we didn't sign up for, and no
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I feel like
it's just
it could be so
bizarre.
many things or nothing at all. It's
And again, like if he is psychopathic and does not feel emotion or like empathy towards people, then you could probably explain like, oh, it was an inconvenience. He didn't want to take care of his siblings. He figured, why not get rid of all of them? You know what I mean? Like that kind of
Yeah.
thinking does happen if you don't have empathy. And I'm not, I don't know if he's been diagnosed
Or
as that, but
and we don't know anything about his diagnoses, but just in the world of theories, like maybe if he did have something going on, maybe he really did think the devil made him do it. For all you know, like maybe
good
he
point.
had
Maybe he was tripping, like you said, and then
or
he
maybe he
really
had like a
believed it.
psychotic break and he really saw a demon or something, and the demon was telling him to do things. Like, I mean, we have no idea.
There's so many empty, like just blank spaces that we're never gonna really know, and it's very frustrating to me. But there's nothing I can do about it. So a year after the murders, another family moved into the house named the. Do you remember?
Oh, the Lutz family.
Yes. I only asked because when I listened to it, I was like, oh yeah, what was their name? And you said the Lutz family. And I went, yeah, that's really, I don't know why I remember that, but it's a very memorable name. The
Well, I'm glad
Lutz
300
family.
episodes later, I'm still able to pull that off. So
That's actually kind of incredible, Em.
Thank you.
What I thought. I was like, for some reason, I think Em will remember this. So the Lutz family moves into the house, and they were there for only 29 days, less than a month, which in episode 4 you said, unless it's February. And I said, well, it was December, but yep, unless it's February.
I tried.
Less than a
Hey,
month. No, it was
still
very
practicing
funny.
my banter.
It was good. It was good. I shut you down. So they moved in and fled within a month. And they claimed that the house was violently haunted. And as we know, their story was adapted into books and movies and became so notorious that it was, it kind of overshadowed the actual real horror that happened there, like the actual multi-murder of children,
Right.
And so Ronald was resentful of all these stories coming out, this Hollywood thing, and he said, quote, I guess the Amityville horror really is supposed to be me because I'm the one that got convicted of killing my family. I'm the one they say who did it. I'm the one that's supposed to be possessed by the devil. And so he kind of has grown to resent this storyline, even though I feel like it has just added sympathy toward him about being possessed by the devil, but whatever. Anyway, although many people consider to have debunked the Amityville haunting, of course, it continues to compel people to this day. And it's almost like the real life horrors of it have become like an afterthought to the story.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, a bunch of people were murdered here and now it's full of demons. And it's like, wait, go back to the multiple,
I wonder if it's because like girl math. I feel like it's because the story that everyone hears is that the devil or a demon made him do it, or he was possessed. So it sounds like there was already ghosts, and then after him there were ghosts. So there's 2 ghost situations and only 1 murder. So it just seems more haunted than
the umbrella
crime.
story is like the violent. Yes,
like it's
exactly
bookended. The crime is bookended with ghosts.
And I also think it's easier for people to swallow the story of someone just murdering their 4 baby siblings in cold blood and their parents. Probably easier for most people to swallow by being convinced that it was a demonic force. It was Satanists. It was the devil.
Something out of his control, and there's no way human beings could do that. Yeah,
no human could do that to their younger siblings. Exactly. I feel like that must be part of it as well, and that's probably why this was so compelling. Is like, holy shit, how could anyone do that? It must be demonic forces. So this of course has become such a notorious story that it made the cut for episode 4, first 5. I was gonna say top 5 episodes. First 5 episodes, certainly not the top 5 episodes of our podcast. Em covered it, and so you should. Well, I was gonna say you should go listen, but maybe don't, guys. Maybe don't. Em did a great job. I just am embarrassed by my.
I don't think I did that. If I did it today, I think I'd have a lot more or less information. But also, did we cover it? I didn't cover it in our book.
So,
no, I don't think I did.
I think you might have. I think for New York, maybe.
Maybe
I'm pulling
for
it
New
up.
York.
I literally have it right here for some reason. Let me see. Do we have New York. Here we go. New York is page 11. Oh, no. Sorry, you did the Ghosts of Broadway.
Oh.
Why did I think you did it? I don't know.
I feel like I did. I feel like maybe I mentioned it somewhere in the book.
Oh, probably. You probably said my dad
there's a QR code or something to the episode.
Next to the You are funny. I'm reading this nice little.
Why?
I don't know. Let's see. Christine covered Nexium at the live show. I covered Dear David. Oh, and that light bulb exploded above your head
Oh
at the
yeah.
Gramercy. My favorite parts tonight were when Lisa Lampanelli came to support us and when my girlfriend sent us good luck cookies. And I talk about Kremet. So that sounds right.
That's what you have to look forward to if you buy our book.
Excellent. Yeah, wow. Go buy our book, I guess. I don't even see Amityville in like the places to check out.
I don't know. Well, I think because it was
Well,
Long
it is a
Island and
private
not the
property.
city. I was
Oh, that's true. Well, anyway, so it is not famous enough to reach our book, but it is famous enough to be in episode 4 of this podcast. But Em did a very good job of the ghost part, which I'm not really covering today because I wanted to focus on the murders. But if you want to go hear the ghosts, Em does a great job of that. And there's a photo that you showed me back then that is still seared into my memory of the little kid.
Mm-hmm.
And we put that on our Instagram. I mean, again, this was 2017, so like it's a long scroll probably to get back there. But
I mean, it's a long scroll on Spotify too. If you're gonna go listen to the episode,
well, no, you can do the nice filter where it says sort by oldest, episode 1. But yeah, if you want to check that, maybe we'll repost it just for funsies.
Yeah,
like that, just on Instagram. Wow. Okay, wait. We're gonna post it on Instagram, and if you were there for the original posting, can you comment? There's probably not many people.
It will
but
be
can you
our
comment
mothers.
like this is the second your cousin and our moms? Like this is the second time I've seen this post. I don't know. Maybe that's weird.
It'll be Allison and our moms, and that's it.
Well, that'll be nice anyway. Okay, I'd like the support of those 3. Anyway, so the owners of the house have since changed. Well, it's gone through many hands since then, but the address has changed. Of course, this has been leaked a bajillion times. It's like probably the most doxed house on the internet. And of course, they can't move the house. You know, it's going to be there whether it's 112 Ocean Avenue or not.
I think it's probably one of those places that if you move in, you have to be prepared for.
You really have to be prepared. Yeah, exactly. And I can't imagine you would buy it without knowing what the fuck is going on.
Yeah. Although I also wonder, like, I feel like a lot of houses now that have haunted histories, I feel like the new families that move in, they say like, oh, we've literally never had activity. I don't know what you're talking about. I feel like they almost get trapped where they have to say that, and now they can't ask for help because if they say it actually is haunted, then they're just going to get phone calls out the wazoo about
but then they got to make a TikTok or like a Instagram page, and then they can get famous. Just what every family wants.
If you want to be viral, just move in. It's fine.
It'll figure itself out. Listen, it's not the first time Em and I have heard of a haunted property and been like, should we buy that?
When the Conjuring house went up,
that's right.
We didn't like have like a full sit down, but we did have like a minute where we were like, that could be our studio.
We were like, hey, I have one more glass of wine and like, let's fucking buy it. And you were like, okay, don't drink another.
Christine really was about 2 sips away from just pressing buy now versus like as if it was an Amazon purchase.
Cart. Yeah, buy now. One click purchase. And the funny thing was it was up for like over $1 million, and I'm over here like, let's buy it. And
it's like we can do it. We can do it. We did it last time with our $200 microphones. We found it. We found the coins in our couch. We can do it again.
And of course, like looking back, well, first of all, no, we cannot afford that, everyone. Don't worry. But second of all, looking back now and listening to that episode where I'm like, man, houses like a starter home is like $300,000, and then like
now that house is probably cheaper.
We could buy a $2 million Conjuring house for fun because I'm drinking, and it's like no. The tables have turned mentally for me, but not in reality. Anyway,
they're constantly getting worse. Sometimes I go on Zillow and I'm like, it's only $9 million. I know.
We'll
figure
crazy?
It out.
Your brain gets so fucked up where you're like, relatively, like things don't. I don't know.
There are times where I've shown Allison in a $12 million house. And I'm like, what do you think? LA. And she's like, what do I think?
What do I think?
I think close the fucking tab. That's what I think.
Like delete all the zeros afterward. Yeah. So if only we knew like how bad. But look, now I own my own home. At least not in LA. It's in Kentucky. But you know,
you've made the changes you had to make it work. So yeah,
we've come pretty far. I feel very happy that, you know, it's just also very nostalgic to listen to episode 4. And it was one of those days where I just thought, I needed this little like pick me up of listening to young Em and Christine and their bullshit,
Yeah.
and probably saying like non PC things and all sorts of
God.
cringe-worthy moments. But I do want to say one update too, which obviously had not happened when we recorded the original, but Ronald DeFeo Jr. has since died in prison in 2021, and he was only 69 years old. So,
isn't it wild? Like that's another thing that like I really need to re-estimate my like how time works for me, because it feels so long ago. But to know that Ronald DeFeo like experienced COVID with us, like.
I know. It
like I feel like he was
it
gone.
puts a different perspective on it. I totally agree. It's like, maybe he died of COVID. I mean, I don't know what he died of, but like,
but
it's just a
2021,
crazy
you never know.
thought.
Yeah.
The official, not been released to the public. Okay, thought I would check just in case. But yeah, and I mean, I remember that documentary that you told me about way back when, and I watched that before you, because you had said there's this documentary called like My Amityville Horror, I think, which was like his side of the story.
It was like one of the kids who lived through the house. He has his own demons. he seems like he's got some stuff going on. But
yeah, I don't really know, but and then there was a whole thing with the Warrens who got involved, and then they got all complicated because they're kind of fucked up. So it feels like it was just such a mess of a story.
Even I will still recommend. It was like, what was it called? My Amityville Story.
My Amityville Horror.
Yeah, it was. I don't know how much of it I believe. I believe he believes it. Like
That's almost what's really interesting about it. And like I would recommend watching that, and then I watched a couple documentaries I watched some more, one that came out I think after he passed in 2021 on Discovery Plus. So if you just search Amityville, there are like several options. But so seeing My Amityville Horror and then watching the other ones, you're like, oh, he didn't touch on X, Y, and Z, or his gun collection, or his this, that, and the other.
Yeah, I thank you for bringing that back to out of the folds of my brain. I might actually watch that tonight. I remember it being good, even if I feel like the only reason I hold back, because usually I'm so pro ghost, is like I am also aware that like when that guy who's in charge of the documentary, or he's like narrating what happened to him, I know he was also a little kid, so maybe his story is skewed in some way.
It's so hard to.
I don't know what's real and what's not, and so like I try to take it with a grain of salt. But it's still scary. Like even if like the things that he's saying, if they're like they were bigger in his head then, or if they really happened. I mean, if they really happened, that was It's fucking
and to be
scary.
honest, like what is a house like with a 6-person murder, like just in innocent children getting murdered? Like
your brain's got to come up with shit.
I was gonna say, no, if someone tells me that place is haunted, I'm like, yeah, most likely. Like, I don't doubt that a place is haunted. Maybe not because demons made him kill his family, but maybe like, I don't know, it can't be like a good energy, right? Like, and apparently when the Lutzes bought the house, which we never really touched on before, is they bought it with all the furniture still. And the mattresses were removed, but the bed frames were all the same.
So the kids were sleeping in beds that people had been murdered
bed frames on new mattresses in the same beds as the children.
That really, I mean, we've talked about this before too, but like where is the line between like
is there I see what you're saying. Yeah,
like would you wear a shirt that a murderer wore, or would you like things like that where it's like at some point it's but at some point, you know what I mean? Like at some point,
like, is it okay to move into a house where this happened? Sure, but is it okay to sleep on the beds? No, but why? Like,
and there's some really practical people who don't feel like energy connections to things, and they can be like, "What? It's a bed frame. I'm not going to get rid of a good bed frame."
It's a perfectly good bed frame. That's every dad ever.
In my head, I'm like, a soul ended there, or like a soul was
a baby who was
taken out of a body
slept on this, and it's like, well, why is that any different than a new bed there? I don't know, but in my head it feels different. It
feels totally different. It's like, or I honestly, like, I would have to repurpose the entire room of like, I can't sleep in a room where 2 deaths happened, like
it would really be trouble. And you'd have to be one of those people who's like, I don't believe in that, to like feel totally comfortable,
unless you're full on thrill seeking enthusiast with
or
ghosts.
That, right? Unless
there's no in between. Either you have to be Zach Bagans or you have to be Blaze. Like you have to,
Those are the two ends of the spectrum. And with that, here are my arms again. Okay, everybody? I don't know what the fuck to tell you.
What a great way to end this.
What a segue.
Well, and that's why we drink, folks. we drink because of those two stories and Christine's shoulders.
The reason the way we ended episode 4 was we went, okay, ready, set, go. And we said, and that's why we drink at the same time. And I was like, that's almost stupider than how we do it now. Because we have to like time our 1, 2, 3, go. It's like, why do we do that?
But at least back then we were in the same room, so it would have.
That's true. Okay, that's true. The lag makes it hard. That's true.
The lag makes it hard. Yeah, we'll never know how to end it. But honestly, at this point, if we knew how to, it would probably be a little too clean and polished for people.
It would be, people would be like, something's up. So it's not my podcast catcher or whatever. It's not my podcast player.
I like it. It's a little, we stumble through it. It's a little,
it's like when I'm saying goodbye
clumsy
at a party and this is why I Irish goodbye, because I get like nervous when I'm talking and I'm saying goodbye and then I'm suddenly like, what a beautiful chandelier. And they're like, I thought you were leaving. And I'm like, I don't know how to say goodbye and leave. Like, I'm just making it weird and I'm drawing out the goodbye. It's nobody wants
you're pulling teeth to leave your own situation.
Can go.
Next time you're saying goodbye and you comment on something, I'm going to go, goodbye, Christine, and just close the door on you.
Just leave. We're going to close the door for you. Okay.
Yeah. Well, so every now and then my mom, I feel so bad about it because it's like so bitchy, but at the same time, there are a lot of times when my mom will call and I just hang up in the middle of her sentence because like it just keeps going. And I'm like, we've said bye like 20 times, goodbye. And so like
as I've tried to teach people, and I hope everybody remembers, but if you are on a phone call and you don't hang up, but do hang up, but if you hit the airplane mode emoji, or not emoji, the airplane mode, it'll say call ended or call failed. It'll say call failed. And so it'll look like there was an error in the phone lines or whatever. But really,
you're really telling on yourself, because next time that happens between us, I'm going to screenshot it and go, what the fuck?
What the fuck did you do? I do that sometimes when I'm really stressed out and I'm scared, and then I just hit the airplane.
Well, you're not alone, because my mom also can't say goodbye. I
like how you're like, but I'm going to hang up because I want her to know that I'm hanging up and it's not an error. With
if I don't do it, it will never end. I'd still be on a phone call from 8 years ago. Like
the good thing too is if you hit airplane mode, then they can't call you back until you turn it off. You know what I mean? It's honestly a win-win-win-win-win.
Well, she doesn't know how to end a phone call, but she also clearly has this weird guilt if she hangs up that like someone is disappointed that the phone call's over, and so she can't end until she's already scheduled a new phone call with you. But it's never like, oh, get your calendar out, when are you free? She just frantically screams a time at you after she's already said goodbye 5 times. She'll go, okay, I love you, goodbye. Oh wait, one more thing, blah blah blah. Okay, goodbye. Oh, one more thing. Blah, blah. Okay, I'll call you at 8 o'clock on Thursday. And I'm like,
and the voice is just getting farther and farther from the phone, but it's like she's still somehow shouting through the.
She's just
the
like,
phone.
I'm like, girl, I'll get you when I get you. Like, I don't care. Like, and she keep. Anyway, I just hang up. I'm like,
so now we're your mom, and we just won't hang up the phone. We won't let these poor listeners free. We won't set them free.
Oh yeah, you're right. We're very Michael Scotting this. Okay, so we'll go. We should say, and that's why we drank at the same time, right? That's how it went on episode 4.
We can try it. And Jack, our editor, if it doesn't line up, can you just leave it how it is? Because it'll be funnier.
It will be funnier if it's bad. So 1, 2, 3, and that's why we drink.
That's why we drink. It sounded good. Like, the problem is on my end, it sounded perfectly in sync, but I'm sure on your end it didn't.
It didn't. My words and your words didn't even touch on my end.
Oh, excellent. So. Well, we'll see what happens when it comes out.
Okay. And
that. Oh, wait, what?
I don't know. That's why we drink.
The end.